I'll give it a second now. This is going to be part two. Part two of two. Hopefully I won't have to stop it again. But I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I hope you can hear me. Is the sound back? I love you, babe. Have a good weekend.
You too. Love you.
I love you. Okay, perfect. So now we're back. My daughter tried to call. And like I was saying, my daughter is a Pisces, Virgo ascendant, Scorpio moon. So if I don't answer her call, she will be persistent and continually call. So because she continually tried to call, it cut off the sound. So I believe we're good now. Anyhow, so back to the story. So where I left off at is that I said I didn't believe it was a good idea for us to meet in person. And that I would be back in Arizona in July, but that I was headed to Yellowstone in July for my goddaughter's wedding. And he said he would be back in Arizona in August, but wanted to meet me in person. So anyhow, he said there's got to be something to this. And if this can happen from Oregon to Pennsylvania, when we're not even in the same space, imagine us in the same space. What would happen? And he said, holy shit, what would happen? ? And I said, we may never find out. So he said, I hope that's not true. Anyhow, fast forward to July, I was back in Arizona and he texted and he said, look, it was never my intention to make you feel uncomfortable. He said, but I really do want to see what's going on with this. And I think that we shouldn't ignore this. And I said, well, I'm headed to Yellowstone in 2 days. And I know that I will not have phone service when I'm up there. And I said, but I will do this. I will ask Spirit what our connection is and see if I can get more information so that I can share it with you. I still, up until this point, had not told him what I knew, that he was my husband. I did not tell him that. I only said it must be past life. Because, you know, people get scared and people start thinking crazy. And so that's why I usually don't share, even though I can feel that familiarity pretty much with everyone. I usually don't share it. So anyhow, I still had not shared that with him, but I promised that I would get the information and share whatever I knew. And he said, please consider meeting me when I come back in August. And I said, I promise you I'll consider it. And he said, that's all I asked for. So anyhow, drove up to Yellowstone. And I remember I went up there with my comadre and we drove up there. And we literally drove up in one shot, 26 hours. We traded off like every 4 hours, driving from Arizona all the way to Yellowstone. And we were going to be sleeping in my ahijada's, my goddaughter's cabin, because she works in the park. And so is phenomenal, by the way. Like Yellowstone, if you have never been to that park, it spans like 4 states or 6 states or something like that. It's amazing. Huge park. And the wildlife there is amazing. And it was freezing, even though it was summertime. But we're driving and it's like 2 a.m., 2:30. We have no phone service. We get into the park and it's pitch black. We don't even know what is beyond. We just know it's pitch black and that there's probably phenomenal things beyond the blackness. And we kept seeing all these animals. And I was in the passenger seat looking down, trying to get my GPS to work so that we could find her cabin. And we're like, oh, a fox. Oh, a rabbit. I love you, baby. Oh, we're talking about all these different animals that we keep seeing. And then I hear her gasp. And as soon as I heard her gasp, I look up and there's a bison, bigger than my car, literally turns and makes dead on eye contact with me. And I could feel its heartbeat in my chest. And I froze. And I was like, holy shit. I literally just connected with a bison. And I felt the heartbeat in my own chest. It was the most powerful experience I had ever had with an animal. And I've had really powerful experiences. Anyhow, we finally found the cabin and freezing our asses, trying to start a fire unsuccessfully because they had these very special like fire starter things, and we couldn't do it. Didn't work. So we were freezing, but we had an electric blanket, and so her and I were like huddled up together. And so before I slept, I was laying on my back and I just asked Spirit, please just show me, what is my connection to Nick? I know that he was my husband, but show me why this is so powerful. What do I need to know? And so that original little piece that I saw in breath work, where I saw him come home and he grabbed me to kiss me and said, let's go to the stones. And then I woke, came out of the breath work. What had happened, I saw beyond that. So I saw from that point, he came home and he said, let's go to the stones. And so I said, let me put her to sleep. So I put our daughter to sleep and we walked. So the village was very close to this circle of stones. Now it's very much like the circle, like Stonehenge, right? But they were short stones that maybe about my height, like 5 foot high and jagged. They were not manicured, big block stones like Stonehenge. So in my naivete, I didn't even know there were other stone circles, sacred stone circles like that. But in this vision, I saw it. And so we go to the stones and I was wearing a cloak and I took the cloak off and I was completely naked. And so he laid down and I began to make love to him. And being on top of him, when I slid my hands down his arms so that my fingertips met his fingertips, each fingertip lit up blue, glowed this beautiful blue glow. And he immediately sat up and pressed his forehead to my forehead, and this blue light, this unified blue light came out of both of us and went into the sky. And we were in the center of the stones, by the way. It was a full moon, and as soon as that happened, I heard this gruff voice, you're not even human, and pulled his hair back and stabbed him in the chest and then slit his throat. And so yes, a lot of past life stories for me have death, and I'm sorry, it's gruesome. But I scammered. I remembered going like this, scammering off of his body and like panicked, but pushing and slipping because the ground was soft and moist and I was muddy, and just pushing and getting so muddy and slipping, but panicking, trying to get off of him. And I went to go run, and the first place I went was the vision that Rebecca saw when she said, you came and you put me in a box. And that's exactly what happened. I was out of breath, and really kind of threw the cloak over myself, but naked. It's hanging open and muddy and just like heaving. And I put her in this trunk, and it was a small trunk, but she was like 3 or 4 years old, small little thing, blonde hair, beautiful. And I had like reddish hair, and I put her in the box and I said, please be so quiet. Be quiet, like a little mouse, be quiet. And I closed the trunk and I put a big old crystal on the top of the trunk. And I ran out, and so I started crying. I was uncontrollably crying, and I didn't want to wake my comadre. So I got up and stepped outside the cabin, even though it was freezing. I stepped outside, and I was just crying so hard. Crying. And I couldn't believe it. And I felt right away Nick feeling that and panicking. Like full on panic, because he could feel me. And it was the most disturbing thing ever. So the part that I did not share is that from the point that I texted him that we were talking from my mother's house, from that day forward, I could hear his voice in my head and he could hear mine. It was the most disturbing thing, because I could feel people, and it has awakened that gift in me, I guess I should say, because steadily that has become stronger and stronger within my psyche, my spirit, is that I can actually hear people and feel them. But I've always been able to feel people, but to actually hear what they're saying to me, that was new. And so, and I shared that with him when I came back to Arizona and said, I'm going to Yellowstone. I'm not going to have service. And I said, but I can hear you. And he says, like, what do you hear? And so I told him, I said, I heard you say, Sherry, what are you doing to me? The more I try to not think about you, the more I think about you. And I've only met you once. What have you done? And I said, you say that more than you say anything else. And he said, holy shit, I do say that. What else? And so I've said other things. And I said, and you do try to summon me. I hear you say, come to me a lot. And so anyhow, and I said, do you hear me? And he said, I heard you tell me to breathe. And I heard you tell me to be calm, that it's okay. You're usually soothing me. And so it was so interesting to have that, because I really believe that that's something that he and I developed, fine-tuned that muscle, that gift, that divine gift in that lifetime that we shared together, because he did travel so much, hunting and warring and doing all of those things, that we developed and fine-tuned this spiritual muscle so that no matter how far apart we would be, we were never apart. And that's how deep our love was. And so I really believe that that's something that we were able to reconnect with in this life because of that life. But I could feel him immediately panic because I was panicking. And, well, crying, not really panicking, but like sobbing, uncontrollably sobbing at reliving that. And I had no phone service, so I couldn't even reach out to him to tell him what I had seen. And so I was just saying it, just telling him, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I didn't do this, I'm so sorry. And, oh my God, I loved you. And I'm so sorry that this is happening again, that we can feel this again. I know this is my fault. And I was like taking responsibility for it. And so I didn't get phone service until a week later when we were leaving Yellowstone. And I texted him when it was my comadre's turn to drive. I was really like mulling over whether I should tell him in person or just text it all, because I knew he could feel it. And so she said, just do it. Just text him. And she was like all excited because she's like, this is like a novela and I want to know how this is going to play out. I want you to meet him in person. Like she was like totally for us meeting in person and like having this explosive, passionate love affair. But anyhow, I was like, he's fucking scared of me. It's not going to happen. But anyway, so I texted him and I told him everything. I said, I'm sorry, but this is the truth. This is what I saw. And we had a daughter. And I said, and I know that I was burned. I was put on the pyre, and I was burned, and I was pregnant. And I said, and the child that was burned inside of me is my now son. And I said, and that's when I was honest with him. And our daughter that was only like 3 years old, I said, I had a friend take her and hide her away, and she survived. And I said, but I know her this life too, and she's 70. And, but she's like my best friend. And so anyhow, I shared all that with him, and I was blocked. He blocked me. So that is very prevalent, by the way, in twin flame. You know, there's the running and the coming back together. The running is intense. It's not like, oh, they're scared to be in love, because literally every man I'm ever with tells me that he's afraid of me. What the fuck ever. It wasn't like that. It's totally like there's an initiation and a dismantling of the ego that creates this expansion that you need to have space. It's not a rejection. The running is more of like self-preservation. So it's so different, the energy. And no, not everyone has a twin flame. That's why I wanted to share that, because there are some psychics that run around that talk about when you find your twin flame, and no, not everyone fucking has one. And that's not true. And everybody's like searching for their soulmate or twin flame, and it's going to be painful for you if you make that your purpose. It's not that. Anyhow, he blocked me, and I knew he was scared of me. And so I just had resolved to let it go. I shared what I shared, and maybe that's all we were supposed to ever share. I was truthful. I got to see this part of myself and regather those soul fragments. But it also made sense, you know, like I say, when you ask a very small child, where were you before you were here? Where were you before you chose me to be your mother? And the thing that my son would always say is waiting. Waiting and waiting and waiting. He would always say that to me as this little 3-year-old kid. And I'm like, he sounds like a little old man, but it's true. He had been waiting. He was waiting for me to be his mother. And that was so special. He didn't want anyone else to be his mother. But he's been killed twice in my uterus. Once I was hung and another time burned, and he still waited. And that's powerful. But when I conceived him, it was cosmic. I felt it like I was struck by lightning. And I knew I'm pregnant. Even though I had been told by doctors I may never have children. I knew it, and it was the first time I was ever with his father. So I knew without a doubt. And I knew it was a boy, and I knew he was special. I knew it. Both of my kids were special. My daughter too. But he's cosmic, this kid. And I would have this recurring dream when I was pregnant with him, where I would be standing in thigh-deep ocean of glowing blue water. So I don't believe it was Earth. And he would drop out of my uterus, out of my womb, and I would scoop him up out of that glowing blue water and put him back into my womb. And that was a recurring dream I had the entire time I was pregnant with that boy. And I delivered him myself. Yes, took him out of my own uterus, out of my vagina. I delivered him. Yes. So, very special. But anyhow, so back to the story. So that happened driving back July. He blocked me. And he said he would be coming back to Arizona in August. Never heard from him. So I just said, okay, this is how it's supposed to be. I had this past life memory that showed me a whole lot. Also really started working on healing my witch wound then, because obviously I witnessed that. But also trying to connect with that energy. So fast forward into 2018. No, it was actually 2 years, because it was 2019 that I was actually dating Hector. And I was at his house watching Gaia. And so I think I mentioned it in the last video, like Gaia will give me a search word. Spirit will give me a search word for Gaia. I'll put it in and I'll choose the first thing that comes up. I'm moving a lot of energy. Wow. I'll put the first thing in and it'll come up and I'll watch it. So this particular day, it was about stone circles and sacred spaces. And it was so powerful because it was a documentary about the stone circles with Freddie Silva. And Freddie Silva and I are friends on Facebook now, by the way, because of this documentary. But I was watching this documentary and all of a sudden started getting all kinds of downloads. And I was like, holy shit, that's the stone circle. It's in the Highlands of Scotland. You know what? I want to say it was 2018 because I was supposed to travel. Oh no, I was supposed to travel last year, 2020. Okay, so this is 2019. I'm watching this documentary. So remember, fast forward 2 years now from the original meeting when he was in my front yard trying to cut trees. Anyhow, I'm watching this documentary and I start having downloads of that past life, of that particular life again, that those were the stones. Oh my God, I need to go to Scotland. I have to travel to Scotland. I have to go and call back my soul fragments from that life in that stone circle. I have to be there. And I could see the jagged topped stone circles. And I'm like crying, having this epiphany, watching this documentary. And it was mind blowing because I was unraveling all of this past life. And then Freddie starts talking about, yes, the locals report seeing blue lights in this particular stone circle. And they believe that it could be a portal that beams other dimensional beings into the earth plane. And I'm like, holy fuck. And I'm like remembering that that past life scene that I relived when I was in Yellowstone with me and Nick, and I'm thinking, oh my God. So I actually reached out to Freddie and told him, look, this confirms everything that you said, the speculation and everything. And I shared it with him. I shared the story and how the village was very close and we would walk there and it was a full moon and we walked there and he was killed in that stone circle. And it was because of the blue light. but that we were actually, I really feel it was cosmic charging, right? We were tantric partners, and I have many lives where I've had that with past life partners, and that's why I say I never read Tantra or listen to tantric teachers, because it's so bastardized. It's not the pure teachings of the original Tantra. But so I was sharing that with him, and he didn't answer me but sent me a friend request on Facebook. So he never responded to that message, but we've been friends on Facebook ever since. Interesting, right? So anyhow, I had told my boyfriend I have to travel. I'm traveling to Scotland. And he's like, why? And so I started sharing this past life with him. And he just started getting creeped out. He told me never to edit, that he liked who I was and that it was special, that I could see things. And it was at that point that I had to end my relationship with him, because he was not comfortable with who I was anymore. So anyhow, I actually had bought my tickets to Scotland to go the following year, 2020, but because of COVID, my flight was canceled and my tickets were refunded. But Freddie did say that I could connect with those stones without being there. So, and I said, you know what? I can do that. I'm going to astral travel to those stones. So I sat at my altar, lit my candles, and astral traveled to the stones. And I did that on a full moon, and connected with the energy of those stones and with Scotland and my spirit and the fractals of my spirit to do that. And literally the next day, I got a text from Nick. And he said, it wasn't my intention to block you, but this is really scaring me, and I don't know what to say. He said, I'm both drawn to you and scared of you. And he said, but I feel like we have to meet, that we do have to actually meet and figure this out. And because it doesn't matter, it's been a couple years and I still think about you constantly. And he said, and it's not getting better. And so I told him what had happened, that I saw the documentary with the stones, and I know where the stones are, that the stones are in Scotland, and that I had scheduled a trip, but the trip was canceled, and that I'm doing my best to stop the energetic connection between he and I, to bring that wholeness to myself, whatever part of me is missing him, to just heal that so that he can feel free and not be feeling so attached to my energy or to me. And he says, don't you see me? And I said, no. Why? And he says, I see you all the time. And I said, look, I said, all I remember is that you have dark hair and dark eyes and a black truck. Do you know how many men are in Yuma County that have black trucks, dark hair, and dark eyes? And I said, no. I said, I feel like if I saw you in person, that I would know it was you. And there have been times that I've been in the post office, and I admitted to him, I said, there's been times that I've been in the post office that I literally hear you say my name, and I look and you're not there. And then I'll look out the window and see a black truck driving away. And he said, that is me. He said, I see you all the time. And he said, what happens to you when you feel that? I said, I just start tingling, like all over my body, it just starts tingling. And I said, and I'm not gonna lie, I get the feeling in my breasts like when I breastfed my babies, like that letdown all the way to the nipple, like that feeling pulls through my breasts into the nipple. And I said, I really can't describe to a man what that feels like, but it feels like milk letting down in my breasts. And he said, well, I lose everything. Like my whole body starts trembling. I can't breathe. My heart feels like it's bouncing out of my chest. And he said, and I can't control my energy. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. And he says, no, he goes, I don't think either one of us is doing it. And he said, but I'm not ready to meet you. I just wanted to let you know that I am still thinking of you. And he said, but I'm not ready to meet you. And I was like, okay. And that's the last we talked. That was 2020. So now, 2 years ago, it was the beginning of the year, because I was supposed to fly on my birthday. My birthday's in May, and my flight was canceled. So it was the beginning of 2020 when he texted, and that's the last I heard. So who knows? So that is the story of Nick the Tree Man, or Twin Flame. I've only ever met him in person one time, and now it's been spanning since 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21. So I don't know. Maybe there will be an update and I'll say that I've actually got to have a conversation with him in person, or however that works out. But those are the types of experiences that Sherry tends to have. And that's why I also have to be so uber careful with who I share space with, who I allow into my sacred sexual space, because that energy is no joke. So I tried to date that life that I had with Nick. And the only way that I was able to actually date it, because we weren't really dressed in like fancy clothes. I was wearing just like literally like a twill tweed kind of cloak and dress. So very like natural fiber type thing, woven, like apron type dress, and him as well. So the only way that I had to date it was by the dagger that killed him, the man that came and killed him. And so it had a very unique shape to it, and the blade was shorter but very sharp, and it had a wide neck, and it was a dagger. So it had a very unique shape to it. So I looked up daggers, ancient daggers of Scotland, and I found a match for that dagger, surprisingly, and it was the Bronze Era. So you can look that up. That is a really long motherfucking time ago. So yes, love knows no times, no bounds, no dimensions. It survives in the spirit. And it can be so confusing when you have a karmic connection with someone that, as Sherry and Nick, our humans become so confused at the intensity that our souls are feeling just by sharing space. It was the same with my past 3 partners. The energy is so intense, and poor Brian, I have more past lives with him than I have with any partner I've ever had. And the karma was so deep. And I will do a story time about him all on its own. But so deeply entwined, our souls are so woven together. It's hard, because then the confusion of Brian and Sherry is that, aren't we supposed to love each other again? Or aren't we? And why are our humans fucking shit up so badly? And it's hard. And that's what the karma is. What can I take from this? What beauty can I carry along for Sherry? And what attachments can I just let go of so that we don't have to hurt, so that we don't have to be longing for each other? Because that's the responsibility, right? I don't want to share this sacred energy. And that's why I kept saying, I don't think it's a good idea for us to meet each other again, because I was so worried about that becoming courting or messy, because it can be, because it confuses the humans. And maybe that's what we're supposed to do, confuse the fuck out of our humans so deeply that our ego just obliterates itself, right? Just obliterates itself. Anyhow, it's a beautiful connection when you're able to reconnect with people that you've known in past lives. And like Becca here, she was my sister in Atlantis also. She was actually Rebecca and my older sister when we were twins. She was our older sister when the floods came. So, and I know I've shared past life with Amanda and Elizabeth. Who else is on here? Janaea. I've been Janaea's mommy. And poor Janaea, when I was her mother, I was killed. So she was motherless because I was killed. So that's harsh, right? So these are intense. And just like I said, this is Sherry's last inception. And I know it's going to be my longest. But these type of experiences happen to Sherry often. This is not abnormal for Sherry. This is very much normal for Sherry. And these are the things that I wasn't sharing. These experiences because probably worried about judgment or the witch wound, right? Speaking those things into existence and sharing them. But really, this is what happens when you are fully aligned with spirit. You have these experiences because there's no such thing as time. There's no such thing as dimensions. There's no such thing as anything. Not even this vessel. It's all layered together. And we're here just witnessing it, experiencing it. And I know that this is the culmination of all of my lives, and I'm gathering those soul fragments back. I'm seeing everything to completion, all of those contracts, all of those loves, all of it. So thank you for sharing your time and energy with me, your most valuable commodity, your frequency. Thank you. I appreciate you so much. And I am sorry for any misalignment that I may have caused. How interesting that the only song in this playlist that has words is coming up right now. So anyway, please forgive me. Thank you for this opportunity. I love you. I love you. I love you.